Gen 3 propulsion core technology for only 2850. That's 10 times less than the real Joola Gen 3s. I gotta get my hands on these. Hey y'all, so after a month of waiting, my Gen 3 Joola clones from Alibaba finally arrived. And in that month, the real Joola Gen 3s have gotten banned multiple times, but I thought it'd be interesting to make a comparison video anyways. So you'll notice right away that the logo, there is no logo, unlike what is on the product description page, and the colors are not what I requested. So I requested red and blue and I got green and pink instead. So if you order these, you won't get the logo or the color you desire. But I think what's more important is how the paddle plays, and doing a quick comparison to a real Joola Gen 3 Hyperion, which is the closest paddle shape, which is a hybrid shape. You'll notice that there is a very slight shape difference where the Alibaba clone has a slightly wider face and the Joola Gen 3 has a slightly narrow face, and that the Joola Gen 3 is slightly longer, but not too much so. Other important things you might want to note is the Gen 3 Joolas, the real ones, have been known to have inconsistent grit, but these paddles have great grit. That gave me tons of spin while I was playing. And while the Joola Gen 3 are advertised to be 4 1/4 handle length, these honestly feel like 4 3/8, like many people were reporting, whereas the grip size for the Alibaba clones are definitely closer to 4 1/4. Now, in terms of weight, you can see that the real Joola Gen 3 comes in at 7.7 ounces, and the Alibaba clone comes in at 8.0 ounces, so they're within 0.3 ounces. Not too much of a difference, but the Joola Gen 3 is advertised to be 8.0 ounces, and the Alibaba clone does fit that criteria. The most important part, though, of the Joola Gen 3 tech is the propulsion core, and this is what gives the paddles extreme power in hands battles and speed ups and counters. And this is where I think the Alibaba clones really disappoint. So this is a Gen 2 paddle, and this is my Ruby that I normally use, and this is the sound of hitting the ball. And compare that to a real Joola Gen 3, you should hear a different thunk sound. So that's a much more deeper thunk sound with the propulsion tech working. Now with the Alibaba clones, it sounds more like the Gen 2. So for reference, the Gen 3 real Joola. And then here's also an example of going right to left of the Ruby Gen 2. Alibaba clone, the real Gen 3. So as you can see, it kind of goes from a lighter sound to the deepest sound on the Joola Gen 3. So all in all, I would say the Alibaba clone is closer to the Ruby, but definitely a little more of a deeper thunk sound than the Ruby, but not quite as much as the Joola Gen 3. And that shows up in the play testing as well. Even though I doubt that there's the same propulsion tech in these paddles, I played with them anyways and actually had a really good time playing with them. I felt like they were much more controllable than the Gen 3, had tons of spin, and I feel like I was able to win a lot of dink rallies just based on sharp and deep dinks, and I was able to handle tough dinks from my opponents. So at the kitchen line, it felt really good. But the drawback is when compared to the other Gen 2 paddles on the court, when I was speeding up or countering, it didn't feel like I had an advantage. We were all on the same playing field, whereas when playing with the real Gen 3, it definitely felt like a big advantage in hand battles and speed ups and the fast game when compared to Gen 2 paddles. So yeah, that's the Joola Gen 3 Alibaba clone. If you're expecting a perfect clone of the real Joola Gen 3, you'll probably be disappointed. But otherwise, the paddle plays really well and honestly is pretty close to my Ruby in terms of control, and the power is still fairly strong, but not as strong as the real Joola Gen 3s. If you're still interested in purchasing the product, I will link in the description some coupon codes for signing up for Alibaba.com. You can get different amounts up to $80 depending on how much money you spend. And thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button and subscribe if this was helpful.